Good evening, everybody. Sorry for the delay, having some technical difficulties. It's the fun of doing a live show. Tonight, there's not a lot of things that I want to go through, but I want to be able to have the time to talk about these things for as long as I need. The first one I want to talk about, I've usually been saying this at the end of the show, but I'm going to say at the beginning today, and it is the Rage Against the War Machine Rally. Sunday is the day. Sunday at 12:30, the final preparations are all being finalized. I just want to say how much teamwork and just work has gone into this thing. We're really in crunch time right now. And we're getting last minute things together. We're still getting money coming in, which is awesome. So we're trudging along. This is going to be a really, really good event. And if you can make it, if you're in the area, please do come, because it's really going to be a good time. We have transportation. If you're in Maryland, I'm going to post it up in the chats. This will all be in the show notes too. But I'm going to put it in the comments on YouTube. That way you can sign up. You don't have to drive. It is a licensed bus service. A fellow Mises Caucus member, LPMD guy, who owns a bus company. And and he has a bunch of buses that are going around, so go ahead and click the link. I just put it up. And then sign up for what stop works for you best, and do sign up, and it's a free ride to and from. Tips are always appreciated for the drivers, but not necessary. And then the speakers list, I'm pretty sure at this point is finalized. So let's. I'm going to read them off. It's quite the list. All right, I'm just going to read them the way it's listed on the website. Jimmy Dore, Ron Paul, Tulsi Gabbard, Dennis Kucinich, Cynthia McKinney, Scott Horton, Ann Wright, Gerald Calanti, I'm saying that wrong, Chris Hedges, Roger Waters, who is co-founder of Pink Floyd, which is freaking awesome. He's going to be a video, though. David Swanson, Daniel McAdams, Garland Nixon, Max Blumenthal, Anya Parampil, Supreme with the Wu-Tang Clan, Jill Stein, Tara Reid, Diane Sayre, Dan McKnight, Tatiana Moroz, Jordan Page, Kim Iverson, Jackson Hinkle, Craig Jardula, Wyatt Reed, and Dan Cohen. Everybody except for Roger Waters is going to be in person. And there's actually an after party. If you go through the website, you can find it. But there's an after party where you have a chance to meet some of these people. I don't plan on going to the after party just because it's going to be a long day for me. I'll be helping out with the rally and volunteering and tabling for the Libertarian Party of Maryland. We are a silver sponsor now, so that's really cool. So yeah, if you can make it to Rage Against the War Machine Rally, please do come. It's going to be a good time, and hopefully this fires up the anti-war movement in the United States again. That's really what we want, and hopefully we have many more of these rallies to come. And if you can't come, there's a link for sister rallies. So that's a link for the transportation. So if you can't come, there's I think over a dozen sister rallies throughout the country now. So maybe hit one of those up if you can, and yeah, it's going to be cool. We will be live streaming the event, so if you can't make it to a sister rally, if there's none close, or you can't make it to the rally itself, then watch it on I think it's going to be on YouTube. I think the Libertarian Party is going to be streaming it at least, and probably the People's Party on their YouTube page. So definitely check it out and at least watch your favorite speakers, because there's at least one speaker that everybody likes there. Okay, so enough about Rage Against the War rally. Just come. That's all I gotta say. Just do it. Wish I had a soundboard. I would play Donald Trump. I'm gonna come. That'd be hilarious. But I don't have one. So let's get into a couple local things. Anne Arundel County. So Stuart Pittman sent out an email. I'm signed up to get his emails for some reason. And it was this email that came out today, and he was talking about the Anne Arundel County Emergency Management, Office of Emergency Management. And I was reading through this thing, and he talks about what they've done in the past year, gotten better with whatever. Talking about how he was there during the first resident of the first, COVID death in Anne Arundel County. Stood alongside leaders of the African American community in the police department condemning the murder of George Floyd. Just reaching out to his woke counterparts. But I found it odd that he would put this out today when everything that's been happening around the country, Ohio with the train derail and the controlled explosion of a bunch of toxic chemicals that Pete Buttigieg just today, talked about. And just now, earlier this evening, FEMA was handing out bottled waters and stuff like that. For the past 11 days, the residents of East Palestine, Ohio, have been just completely hung out to dry. And it's taken 11 days for the federal government to start giving resources. And honestly, and the Ohio state government hasn't done anything to help its residents either. So I just thought it was odd that he would put out this email talking about the Office of Emergency Management in Anne Arundel County. And he talked about nuclear war multiple times. It's a really odd email. I wish I could link it. Maybe I'll try to screen shot it later with my phone and post it up on Twitter. It was just a really odd email that came out at a really peculiar time. What's a podcast without a little bit of conspiracy theory? So, just a little bit odd. A little less conspiratorial and a little less exciting is a couple weeks ago I talked about the bill that Anne Arundel County Council was passing or put up for extending the temporary use of sidewalks and roads for restaurant outdoor dining. That hearing was last week, and it was a unanimous yes by all 7 members. Voted yes, and it was effective a week ago, so last Wednesday. So you will see more tents and outdoor dining come the spring and summer and fall. Which, I mean, if it increases the capacity of what a restaurant can operate, then that's good for them. More revenue, more local businesses with greater revenue streams. It helps the community. It's ultimately a good thing. It does take away some sidewalk usage and some road usage, takes away some parking, but ultimately it's a good thing. And really with Anne Arundel County, it's really, the whole slate is really boring. I think I read over like the first episode, and it's not much, and it's really boring. So my intention is to go in there and shake things up with chicken laws, and get a bunch of people in there on a regular basis and be all fired up about chicken laws and the zoning laws, because it's zoning. It's what all it comes down to. It's not a health thing. It's all zoning. So hopefully we'll be in there firing some things up soon, and hopefully I can report on that here in the coming weeks. The big thing that I want to talk about tonight is a state bill. It's a Senate bill. Senate Bill 378. This isn't an uncommon bill to have been passed recently. DC actually passed this bill, a bill very similar to this, I think in 2019, maybe 18, which I thought was kind of weird timing. That COVID was right behind it. They could have just gotten it right the first time. Who knows? But anyway, when I say right, I mean they passed it when a health emergency was declared, a year later, less than a year later. So let's bring up this bill. Let me share the screen with you. And what this bill is essentially doing is it's going to allow your kids to get vaccinated without your knowledge or consent, because we all love that, right? Let me see if I can make it full screen. There we go. Okay. So it's still in the committee stage. So it's being heard next week on the 22nd at 1:00. The committee is the Finance Committee, which I don't understand. Maybe somebody who is more in tune could enlighten me why it's going to the Finance Committee instead of a Public Health Committee, being as it has to do with public health. So the synopsis, the short, sweet version is: providing that minors who are at least 14 years old have the same capacity as an adult to consent to vaccination, authorizing minors under the age of 14 to consent to vaccination under certain circumstances, and providing that the capacity to consent does not include the capacity to refuse vaccination for which a parent or guardian has given consent. So there's one little protection thing saying, if you don't want your kid to get it, then they can't get it. But if you don't want your kid to get it, but they want to get it, then they can get it. So it's saying that 14-year-olds can consent to medical procedures without your consent or knowledge. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of it. Sorry. So here's the bill. Okay. Okay. So I'm just going to read through some of these lines so that you don't have to. Or you can read it just to make sure I'm not lying, which I always encourage. Don't just take my word for anything. It's just read through it. It's really not that long, and there's enough to get pissed off about. So let's just get right into it. For the purpose of providing that minors of at least a certain age have the same capacity as an adult to consent to vaccination, authorizing minors under a certain age to consent to vaccination under certain circumstances, providing that the capacity to consent does not include the capacity to refuse vaccination for which a parent or guardian has given consent, and generally relating to vaccination of minors. In this section, informed consent means a decision to undergo a specific medical procedure or treatment that is 1. made freely after sufficient time for contemplation, 2, made without coercion by any individual, and 3, based on the providing healthcare provider's accurate and substantially complete explanations of the proposed procedures or treatment, of the reasonably foreseeable complications and risks to the patient, of how the procedure or treatment and its reasonably foreseeable complications and risks compare with the complications and risks of each readily available alternative, and that is provided in a manner that can be understood by the individual making the decision, considering the individual's age, level of maturity, and intellectual capability. A minor at least 14 years old has the same capacity as an adult to consent to vaccination. A minor under the age of 14 years, including a minor who is developmentally disabled or unemancipated, has the capacity to consent to vaccinations if the opinion of the healthcare provider, the minor is of sufficient intelligence to understand and appreciate the need for, nature of, and the significant risks and consequences of the vaccinations, and the minor is able to give informed consent. The capacity of a minor to consent to vaccination under this section does not include the capacity to refuse vaccination for which a parent or guardian has given consent. Notwithstanding any other law, if a healthcare provider vaccinates a minor in accordance with this section and without consent or knowledge of the minor's parent or guardian, the minor's medical or billing records may not be resealed or made available to the minor's parent or guardian in any manner without the minor's consent. A minor who is vaccinated in accordance with this section shall have access to the minor's vaccination records without the consent of the minor's parent or guardian. A hospital or licensed healthcare provider may not incur civil or criminal liability in connection with any examination, diagnosis, or treatment authorized by this section unless the hospital or licensed healthcare provider is negligent. And that's all of it. It's pretty clear, cut, and dry. There's not a whole lot of legalese in this bill, and that's what makes it almost even worse, I guess you could say. One second. Okay, so let's go back and kind of break it down. Let me just do one thing really quick. I have a surprise guest coming on here in a minute. After I'm done ranting and raving about this ridiculous, tyrannical bill. So just give me a second. Okay. Bada bing, bada boom. All right. Okay, so let's just go back to the bidding. We've listened to it all now. Now let's start breaking it down. The big one that is the big one is Section B. A minor at least 14 years old has the same capacity as an adult to consent to vaccination. Okay, so I've been in arguments with people where they say, the slippery slope fallacy is a non-argument. You can't just assume that things are going to get worse. But experience has shown me that once things start down a slippery slope, they continue to go. So screw the slippery slope fallacy argument part of this, because honestly it's bullshit, and more times than not we're correct, right, when we say that this is a slippery slope that could lead to other things. So saying that a 14-year-old has the same capacity as an adult to consent to vaccination, who's to say that we don't pass a bill down the road that a 14-year-old can consent without a parent or guardian's consent or knowledge for sex change operations, right? or taking hormones. Um, we say that in Maryland that you have to be 16 years old to consent to sex of somebody who's under 18. You have to be 16, basically 16 or 17, to consent to sex. And once over 18, then you can't consent because it's a minor and adult and it's statutory rape, which is a good thing. But what we're saying is that you can be younger than the age of sexual consent in order to get a medical procedure done. A vaccine that you don't know at 14 what every possible side effect are, what every negative effect can come of a vaccine. Let's say, for example, the COVID vaccine, right? There has been undeniable proof that this has caused negative symptoms, negative reactions to a lot of people, up until the point of where they're dying or having cardiac arrest, or they have neurological disorders that are caused by this, that they're essentially disabled for the rest of their lives, with no cure in sight at all. Um, and that we're going to allow a 14-year-old to get this done, probably at a public school. That's probably where most of this is going to happen, because that's when the government has your kids, and has their undivided attention and can coerce them, even though they say they're not going to. They're going to encourage them to get these vaccines. 14-year-old, their parents don't want them to get the COVID vaccine, but they have a teacher that is, February 14th of 2023, still wearing a mask, still getting every booster that comes out. And, maybe they talk to the student and find out that the student hasn't been vaccinated. Oh, well, if you want to get vaccinated, we can do that at school now. You can go down to the nurse's office and go get vaccinated. And you don't have to tell your parents. Like, your parents won't be mad. It's a very slippery slope that we're going down. But I'm going to put this on pause because my special guest is here, and I want him to go. It's going to be Scott Spalding. Let's throw him on here.
What up?
What's up, Scott?
How you doing?
All right, so
my crummy studio.
oh no, dude, my studio is my son's playroom, so don't feel bad. So I wanted you to come on because you tweeted at me earlier about how today went, how things are going so far with the Defend the Guard, and I just really wanted to hear it from you. I didn't want to screw anything up. You're the master when it comes to this bill, so I just wanted you to talk about it for 10, 15 minutes, how things are going, anything else that anybody can do at this point, if we can do anything. So go ahead, the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just got off the phone with 6 of the people that are testifying in favor, just kind of getting us all on the same sheet of music. So we're gonna, everyone's gonna get their guitar solo, but we're all gonna come back under the same, under the same tune. So we're looking pretty good. I got 16 people to sign up, 7 Marylanders, 2 people in person, and a few experts from out of state, authors. I was hoping for more, I'll be honest, but hopefully there's not a next year. If there is a next year, anyone who's listening needs to block out a day, and we got to make it in person, because I think that'll really knock it home. But deal with the bill is it's getting its hearing tomorrow at 1 p.m. I'll send, I'm sure I'll be tweeting out the link to it live for anyone who's a real political junkie and wants to watch the live committee hearing. I've watched so many Defend the Guard hearings, I can't even count them anymore. But I think we're looking pretty solid. I think we there's no one speaking in opposition. We did have one person write a paragraph in opposition, but they clearly didn't understand the bill. And if I were to get, I had to fight the temptation to email them right away and be like, I think you got it backwards and you should be on our side. Because but yeah, it's we got 42 people who registered their favorability towards the bill, and again, only one opposed. So I'm feeling pretty good. Um, we'll see what the legislators say tomorrow, or that hopefully I can stick around and get sort of a sense of how they're feeling about it after the hearing. I'm going to have a follow up with one or two of them Thursday, so I might be able to get a sense of it from then too. But for anyone that hasn't heard, real quick, the Defend the Guard is just a state level bill. If this is your first episode, state level bill declaring that Maryland's Guard can't deploy, and some relevant updates is Maryland can't deploy to combat. Doesn't interfere with any other thing the Guard does. It just says that the 70 Army National Guardsmen and their Chinook helicopters that we've got from Maryland shouldn't be flying their way to Syria right now. They should be home serving Maryland. Or at the very least, they should be going over. They shouldn't be flying to combat in Syria, but instead should be maybe helping out with earthquake relief in Turkey, which would be a permissible mission if this bill was passed. So that's the gist of the bill. Is we're just asking for Congress to declare the wars they want us to be in and take us out of the ones they don't want us to be in, and bring the rest of the folks home. So yeah, we're looking pretty good. I'll let you know more, but we've got, like I said, a strong showing in favor. And what people can do now, if they are listening, if they catch this tomorrow, if they're watching now, is ring some telephones and send some emails. I'll throw you the file and see if I can throw the file in the chat. I'll send you the file. But the best thing we can do is if you look at my Twitter, which is at MDVet4, or if you look at me on Facebook, Scott Spalding, you'll see a file there, and my last posts are definitely going to be phone numbers to call. Call your delegate, especially the ones that are in the committee, and tell them they should vote favorable on this. Because, like I said, we have a majority support, but we want to make it overwhelming and show them that all of Maryland wants this bill to pass, left, right, and center.
So, do you have a feeling of how the members of the committee are feeling about this? Did they speak on it at all, or is it just mostly kind of just public opinion? I guess you could say right now.
Have spoken on it. I have spoken to a good number of them. More than half I've gotten to speak to, and of them, I would say about of 24 committee members, I would say at least 8 lean favorable. And like I said, I've spoken to about 12, 13, 14 of them. At least, and some of them, they're just, I got to talk to their staffer. I got to talk to, or they just kind of were neutral. Nobody's been negative. So it's just we're building, because last year we didn't have anybody leaning favorable. They just kind of listened and nodded and it moved along. But this year, I think we've got a good number leaning favorable. And we have another avenue. Should this not sail through this year, if we don't knock it out of the park this year, there's a delegate who is going to introduce a bill that will help move it forward by creating kind of a working group on the concept. A separate delegate who I think he was gonna push it this year, but instead he decided to let the bill fly as it was once he saw that Delegate Kramer had introduced it. And so next year we might have something kind of more slower progression, but building towards it. If that makes any sense. It's a small step in the legislative process rather than us just passing it this year, which is not ideal, but it's something.
Right. Do you think that there's any... I know there's lots of other states right now that are going through the same process. Defend the Guard bills are all over the country right now. Do you from your experience, do you think that there's any kind of pressure to our state legislators, seeing that other states are also talking about this issue, and that nationwide it's starting to get the support that it truly deserves? Do you think that's playing any sort of role in kind of swaying their decisions, or do you think they kind of have the blinders on and are just worried about what's in front of them right now?
It depends. Some of them, I mean, just looking at other hearings, some of them will say, well, especially unfortunately, like in South Dakota, they more or less, it's the bill's third year up, and one of the opponents said, well, it's its third year, and it hasn't passed anywhere, so this thing's DOA. But I would say two things on that is, well, one thing going for Maryland is it's not its third year. It's in some ways it's the second. In some ways it's the first, because last year barely counted,
Right.
and for the state legislature they had this short crazy session. And in some ways it's its fourth, because a very similar bill was introduced in 2009 and 2010 that I learned about by Jamie Raskin and some other state senators, folks were state senators at the time. Um, and that's all to say that it is it being not passed anywhere else is, I'll be honest, some people feel like it's a detrimental thing, but at least this is coming from the chairwoman's staffer, so chief of staff, but she spoke like she had some experience. It's the mind of the chairwoman that Maryland should be first, not last.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm going to try to lean on that tomorrow a little bit and say, Maryland ought to be the first state to pass this. What better, like, just kind of trying to lean on that tendency that this woman thinks Maryland should be a leader
Right.
in certain things. So I'm going to try to put her in the position of having to say she doesn't want to lead on this.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, that makes sense. A lot of legislators in Maryland always talk about Maryland first, or Maryland leading the way on what is typically what.
Taking away all the guns.
Right. Yeah. Right. It would be like super progressive, or kind of legislation, but this is something that I'm surprised it's as much as a fight as it is, to be honest, because in my mind it's such a a bipartisan, or in kind of our case like a tripartisan bill that you would think that most people would agree on. You know what I mean? It's keeping our resources in Maryland. It's keeping our people in Maryland. It's keeping our people safe and out of combat. So you would think that by this day and age we don't want to, at least on a state level, send people to combat zones, send them to war. If we don't have to, right? And without a congressional declaration of war, then we shouldn't be doing it. Period.
Yep.
So that's kind of reassuring that she has the mentality that Maryland, can pave the way for this, for other states to hopefully pass it. And even if it, is just progressive or Democratic states that pass it, that's still a step in the right direction, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really is. If Maryland pushes it through, maybe other states that we didn't expect will follow. And like you were saying, I mean, the one part I somewhat regret how upset I got, and maybe in politics, let's say, I got my first year I learned about this, which was not last year but the year before, and I really thought I was giving them a gift. Here's your golden gift. This law is perfect. You're welcome. You know what I mean? And I was very annoyed that they didn't reject me, but they said, "Oh, I was learning that politicians, they don't like to commit to anything." And I really thought they would just see this and, bam, run. This is, take the ball, go to the end zone. There's a clear line, and I was surprised and very disappointed and a little angry. And I got to be honest, at some level, I'm still angry about it, but I've just learned to suppress it and accept that that's the way it is.
Yeah.
That they've got to get comfortable with it. They're not going to take something they just heard of the first time and run with it. At least most of them, But yeah, I mean, a better analogy would be if I handed somebody a football in the middle of a crowded street and expected them to run to the end zone. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
They're walking the other way. Here's this football. Go.
Right.
I guess in reality, that's what I might have been doing. I saw the end zone and nobody else did.
Right.
Um,
Yep.
so I thought I was handing him football, and I got to point him in the right direction and tell him why. Um, but yeah, I think I don't I you know I'm very optimistic, but real feeling, if this thing gets through this committee this year, if it gets a vote, man, I'm going to be over the moon. And but that also, for those listening, doesn't end the fight, because the next step, it should be on its way, but that means there's got to be a Senate hearing and a Senate
Hmm.
committee. And so if you missed your shot speaking at this committee hearing, just wait for my next tranche of emails, texts, Facebooks, you name it, to get you signed up for the Senate hearing if it goes there.
So
So,
do you think there's any benefit? Because I was kind of reluctant to sign up. I honestly, I'll be honest, I didn't sign up because I had reluctant. Yeah, I was kind of reluctant because I'm not a veteran. I have no military. I'm not active. I was never reserve. I was never National Guard. Never served. I'm not a veteran. I have no
yeah.
military experience. Do you think that non-military voices can have a place in this bill, in them hearing from the public that aren't veterans? Do you think that will
Yes,
sway
absolutely.
anything?
I absolutely think that this can't, shouldn't, and won't. I mean, it can be veteran led. It looks better that way. Um, uh, in a sense, like, to say that it's led by veterans, that this is a veteran, pushed initiative, but that doesn't mean that we don't need. I mean, like, we need Marylanders in support, and it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter. And let's be honest, there's a cost to all of us. There's a cost to every single one of us that you have a right to speak up about. That
Right.
somebody, if even if it's just me, could be, has to take days off of work, or has to do this or that, or has to go to has to be pulled out of doing their other job, taking taxpayer money, you know, all of you, everyone in Maryland is paying for, if a state employee is deployed or mobilized, or even just has, like, to go in during the week for drill. If they're a state employee or a teacher or a policeman, they're getting double pay.
Plain, yeah,
They're
double
getting
pay. Right.
they're getting double pay. They're still getting their government. They're getting a federal paycheck plus your money, plus your Maryland tax dollars. That affects
Right.
every one of us, and it also makes that less effective, because as long as we're going to be having a guard, you know, what about, I'm going to go back to these helicopters. If there's another flood in Ellicott City, those helicopters are the ones that were dropping the sandbags in place to try to, cut the flooding, you know,
Right.
and they're not here. They're somewhere else now. That affects every one of us, you know?
Oh wow.
So, should there be something where the guard needs to be called, if they're not here, that affects you, and you have a right as a citizen to say what your guard should be doing. I mean, that's one of the things too. I mean, one of the best, what I'm trying to iterate to them is, if some general comes speaking against the bill, it's like, we have a civilian led military. This isn't a dictatorship. This isn't a Maryland or anywhere else. Isn't a tin pot dictatorship. The military doesn't tell you what to do, and it doesn't tell Congress what to do either. Congress decides, and the state delegates decide. And so, hearing that from more Marylanders that they care says a lot. Because if it's just this niche issue that everyone forgets about, oh, I didn't even know we had troops in Mali or Syria or wherever, you know,
Mm-hmm.
then, well, they're not going to pay attention. But if we had 3 million Marylanders saying, "What the hell is our guard doing in Syria right now?" You know, you better
Right.
believe that, you know, they might stand up and pass this bill. So what the bring our troops home people are hoping for, I'm not sure. I don't feel like I want to see this get voted on and die. Um, I'm mixed. I mean, I have no control over it, but some people are advocating that we should push to get a vote this year, as opposed to just letting it sit, even if it's going to die, so we can pressure and vote against the people who voted against it. You know what I mean? So
Right.
we know who to lean on and who to give kudos to, and I can see the logic of that. And that's where we need everyone paying attention. Is if this does go to a vote, I mean, if they let it die, it's hard for us to hold someone accountable, you know. But if we get a committee vote, we can find out what happened and say, what the hell is wrong with you? Why did you vote against? Why would you vote against this? You know, and so that involves all of us.
So tomorrow is the.
One other thing. I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no, go ahead.
I thought that to cut you off. So I apologize, but it's kind of relevant. You know, the fact of the matter is, when I wrote in my op-ed in support of this bill, my command, I got a talking to from my chain of command. I'm not really supposed to be talking about it at my unit. I don't talk about it at my unit because I don't want to get in trouble. So, and I'm sure there's other people who would support it, but I can't spread the word within my unit. So I need other people who aren't in the Guard to spread the word to their friends and neighbors who are in the Guard. And I need other people who are, and the other thing is, even then, they might sit there and think to themselves, I could get in trouble for supporting this, and keep their head down, which is all the more reason why we need you all to have our back and do the speaking for the other Guard members who might support this bill, who are shy to speak up about it.
Right.
You know?
Well, now I feel like a piece of shit for not signing up.
No, that wasn't my intention at all. People are busy. They got things going on. It's fine. That wasn't my intention, but
no, but
yeah,
I wasn't sure if it would be any advantage of just Joe Schmo from Pasadena, signing up to speak on this.
Yeah, and you're not the only one. There's a few other folks that had the same feeling and said, "Oh no, I'm not a veteran. I can't speak on this." But I'm here to tell you can. I give you here's my veteran card. I give you permission. And in fact, we need your back. We need you to have our back. And damn, I had another thought, but I'm gonna let it slide until I cut you off in a minute.
Yeah, you're fine.
But basically, yeah, we need as many people as possible. And you are right though. To be fair, I kind of had this feeling. I was talking to my wife about it last night. On the one hand, I was like, we could have 50 people speak, and I would have loved to get 50 people in the room. You know what I mean? We're allowed to have up to 50 people in the room speaking in favor, and I was thinking to myself, man, I'd love to fill that room. And then I was thinking, man, honestly, unless we could get 3,000 to sign up and 50, and then they're like, oh, well, we're cutting it off at 50. That would be like, holy shit, this is overwhelming. You know? We can't believe how many people are in favor of this bill. You know what I mean? That are willing to take their time off. We've got to support this. But if it was 50 and only 50, then I was afraid that, well, this is annoying. You know what I mean? They're going to take up, every one of these people is going to speak for 2 minutes. It's going to take 2 hours to listen to all these folks. So I'm kind of, in a sense, glad that we didn't hit that peak number. We got a good number in the teens of showing up, and 50 people registered their support. It was 42 people, so they supported it, and 16 are showing up to speak. So I kind of feel like that's a good number. We'll take up about 30 minutes of their time, which is, reasonable before their attention span just goes to crap. But maybe, hopefully, if it doesn't go this next year, I'm hoping we can get 3,000 to register their support and sign up, and then we pick the top 50 and really show them a tour de force.
Oh yeah, for sure. So as far as tomorrow goes, right? This is committee hearing, right? Still.
Yeah,
okay.
It's just a committee hearing, but as I understand it, more or less anything that gets out of the committee goes.
Okay.
At least the folks I've talked to, they more or less, I think this Friday, they'll have a little straw poll and decide, hey, are we going to vote on this? Mm-hmm. Are we going to just let it die? And, they're going to look around, and if it's more than 50, they usually don't kill things. They usually don't vote them down. They usually just let them sit if they don't want to, if they don't want to go. That's where it's, do we push for the vote or not? But if the majority of them are in favor, or the chair decides she's in favor, then more or less, because we have a supermajority, it should all be smooth sailing from there. It should go floor, almost always follow the House of delegates will almost always follow the recommendation of their committee. And then if it's past the House of Delegates, then the Senate will almost always follow, because they're all on the same team. You know what I mean? Right. So they're trusting that the committee's vetted it. And then if the committee gives it the green light, then it's good to go all the way. Is the hope. That's what I understand is typically the case. So hopefully, if we can get a good hearing today, and then I can follow up a little bit and get a warm fuzzy out of everybody on Friday, they'll green light it, and then we're sailing.
What is the House bill number?
0220.
Okay, I want to bring. So there is a potential that this could. You said it doesn't happen often, but that it could get killed in committee tomorrow, essentially. So
they wouldn't vote then. They'll vote on Friday, I believe, is what they'll do.
Okay, so tomorrow they'll just hear everybody's.
They're going to heir everybody out. Then they have I think they vote on Fridays, is what I heard. I don't know that. It's what somebody said it, but I'm not certain.
Okay.
But they don't vote then and there. I know that. And usually one of like three things will happen. Either they'll look, as I understand it, talking to somebody who's been in some of these committees, they'll usually kind of look around the room and say, kind of, they'll do a straw poll basically. And if the straw poll says it's going to pass, then let's have a vote, and they'll all vote and it'll pass. Or if somebody really is a jag, wants to push it, they could, I don't care about your straw poll, I want you to vote on it, and they could vote it down. That would kill it, at least for this year. Or they could just let it sit and kind of die a slow, but at least then we haven't forced anyone to take a stand yet and vote for or against. It hasn't been killed. They can't look back at it next year and say, well, we voted against it last year, so we're voting against it again.
Right. So it would just kind of fizzle out in committee as opposed to being just struck down in committee.
Exactly.
So if it goes,
so even after the hearing tomorrow, people could still be calling and emailing and trying to, or get a meeting with their delegates. Say, can I have 10 minutes of your time? I'd like to talk. I saw the hearing, and I'd like to tell you I learned about it. You could pretend you could be a babe in the woods. Say, I heard about it in this hearing, and man, that thing sounds great.
Right.
Send him an email or give him a phone call and just nudge him to, maybe you should vote for this on Friday. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So then, after, let's be positive, because it's always fun to be, positive.
Yeah.
So let's say that it gets out of committee, then then what? It's open to amendments at that point.
I believe it could be. It goes to the floor.
Okay.
It would go to the whole House to vote on. I don't know when. And then it would have to go through what they call crossover day, which is where they would make it would have to get voted on by the House before what they call crossover day, which is the 21st, I think. No, that's the 2023 session. 2022. Hold on, 2023. Crossover day should be, I believe I heard March 30th. I'm just trying to double check. Crossover day is when before the third. If the floor wants to let it die, it's the 20th. Okay. So if for some reason the full House doesn't like what the committee said and wants to let it die, they would not vote on it before the 20th of March. If they wanted to move on to the Senate, they would vote on it before the 20th of March. Sometime between now and the 20th of March. If it passes the committee, it should get a vote from the whole House. So a few more nudges to your delegates then would also help it. So it'd be, So the next thing would be second reading, whatever. And then, so the second reading would be like in the floor or something like that.
Okay.
And then that first reading would happen sometime after the 20th of March. Everything to the left of that opposite chamber has to happen before the 20th.
Okay.
And then
it's got to.
Yeah, on the 20th of March, it gets to the Senate, and then there will be a Senate committee hearing.
Okay, got it.
Which hopefully would be friendlier, but we would still need to have our ducks in a row.
Right.
And get, that's where everyone else everyone that's testifying today plus everyone else that's listening is going to show up then.
All right. So we still have a long road as far as this bill's concerned.
Yeah, yeah.
It sucks because I know how much work you put into it so far, but it's almost like we're still trying to get out of the starting gate on this one, right?
Yeah.
So
So this is if we get a good hearing tomorrow, and and they vote for it, and they vote yes on it on Friday, we just broke out of the starting gate. But again, it should be pretty smooth sailing. If one Democrat-led committee has voted for it, then the rest of the House and Senate is most likely to fall in line with their recommendation.
gotcha.
But nevertheless, it might. That's actually where it might start ringing alarm bells, and somebody might actually speak in opposition to it. That's next Senate hearing that will come might be when, oh crap, that's
Right.
when the adjutant general or whoever might, crap their pants and be like, okay, I can't not sign up to testify for these things because, they've never come to speak against it.
So is there any? I guess could there be any opposition within the guard? Like, would this kind of it's always everything's always about money, right? So could this potentially like lower the budget of the National Guard because if this were to go through, would this like potentially lower the budget of the National Guard because they're not getting deployed overseas in combat zones and things like that?
No, it wouldn't.
Okay.
So that's that's what people worry about is, the Guard is very proud to say how much federal money they get diverted to them. There's a few things in our favor. Well, first thing is Congress makes that decision, nobody else. So Congress has the power to make the decision to just declare war, or they could cut our Guard. They could try to next year not spend as much money on this or that program the Guard has or wants.
So at the state level, the budget wouldn't be
the state
cut at the state level.
The state level, it's just something like 90% of the Guard money the Guard gets comes from federal. So if the federal government decided to reduce it, they could, but like as a punishment for this, we have a few things working in our favor. Frankly, whether we like it or not, our state senators are pretty powerful. Steny Hoyer, even though he's stepping down, is one of the top, like number 3 in the Democrat-led House. Or he's not. He's number 3 in Democratic Party leadership. And they are. And Jamie Raskin is a rising star in their party, and he supported very similar bills, so it'd be awkward for him to go along. But yes, there is theoretically the possibility always that the federal government can decide not to spend as much money on Maryland's Guard. That said, there's a few other things in our favor. One of them I learned recently is that it's hard to explain without getting into too much detail. A lot because it's close to the Pentagon, basically because we're close to DC, a lot of officers who have to come to the Pentagon or get a job in DC or whatever the case may be, right? When they're looking for our military officers have to stay current even if they get a civilian job or whatever. So a lot of them join the Maryland Guard and they have a lot of connections there. So the leadership of the Maryland Guard is relatively more well-connected than, let's say, the South Dakota Guard. There's a lot more officers that end up in high places who've been through here and been a part of one of these units. And maybe some of them work in at the budget writing. And they might not want, there would be strings that could be pulled to say, hey, look, don't hold this against us or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
Basically, because the Guard here is somewhat more politically well connected, if that makes any sense.
Yep.
It might, reduce the likelihood of anything befalling us. But again, all of that, I guess the other thing to say is, if that were to come to pass, the Congress is showing us their true colors. And that's part of what this is about. Congress would be telling us then telling the whole country that they would, if they voted to reduce the funding to a state that passed this bill, that's the time nationally we say, Congress is too freaking cowardly to put their name on the line. They're so cowardly they won't put their name on the line, so they're going to they'd rather cut off their nose to spite their face. They're so cowardly that they would cut a guard out of the country or reduce a guard rather than just perform their duty to put their name on the line before sending those same guard members to war. You know? And that's time that could raise national alarm bells to say, look at these craven bastards who won't, you know, we would have something to grandstand on. We would have a right to.
Right.
If they
on a national level, not just a state level.
That's another way to put it, is we deserve to know. You know what I mean? We kind of might think we know their true colors. I think you and I probably have a feeling about what their true colors are, but we want to make them show their true colors.
Right.
You know? So, and maybe if we make them, other people will wake up to it. You know?
Yep. So, I mean, this is not, you know, obviously this is to keep our men and women in Maryland, but this could also have other, you know, trickle effects down the line, you know, that could even raise more awareness to even a larger issue.
Yeah, this is,
you know what I mean? So
locally, this is a think locally, act, or, you know, act locally, think globally kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
We're taking
Absolutely.
local action that can have bigger effects, which is the great part. This is local politics, but at the same time, it can affect the whole country and the path that the whole country takes if we get this bill passed.
Right.
You know?
Awesome. Well, yeah. Scott, thanks for coming on. I'm not going to take up any more time. I have one question, or I guess not a question, because you probably haven't looked at it because you're very busy. But
what you got?
When you get off with me, go to the state legislator website and look up Senate Bill 378 and read it, and then stew on it. And after tomorrow, text me and tell me what you think about it. I'm not gonna give it to you right now.
Oh God.
Yeah, read it. Let me know what you think, and it'll get your mind off of your duty for a hot minute, and you can get pissed off about something else. But read that Senate Bill 378 and let me know what you think. That's what I was ranting and raving about when you hopped on. So yeah, read that one. That should be a good one. So Scott, thanks again for coming on. I know I'm going to give Kipke and Chisholm a call tomorrow, and I think I might make a couple other phone calls. I got a couple, you know, former coworkers and friends that were either, you know, combat veterans or they're guard members, current or former. So I think I'm going to send out a couple texts and phone calls tomorrow. I think on my lunch break I'll give Kipke and Chisholm a call.
Hey,
now that you kind of, you know, you kind of
counts as far as what I've heard. You know, I'm going off of Scott Horton and some other folks what they say, but especially the state legislature, 5 or 6 phone calls can make the difference between them paying attention or not. You know,
right?
So
okay, cool. Well, Scott, thanks for coming on. I'm glad. I just wanted it from the horse's mouth. I wanted it to come from you. I didn't want to spread misinformation or disinformation. So have a good night. Happy Valentine's Day. Tell your wife happy Valentine's Day.
You too.
And I'll see you Sunday.
Yep. See you then.
All right, man.
Yeah,
see ya.
I'll be waving a victory flag or something, you know.
Yeah, hell yeah. Let's do it.
I'll be over the moon if that's something to brag about if we got a yes vote this Friday, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I'll probably climb up on the stage, and you know, Dan McKnight's speaking there.
Yeah.
He's kind of the ringleader of the circus I'm in, and if we got a yes vote by Friday, man, we're gonna be ringing it from the rafters.
Oh yeah, you gotta try to get in his ear while he's there.
He'll know about it. He'll know. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. And we'll have to be like here's Scott. He's right here. You know, come talk to him. This is our Maryland guy. Yeah. So yeah, awesome. All right, man. Well, maybe I'll talk to you before then. If not, I'll talk to you Sunday.
All righty. Take care.
All right, Scott. See ya.
See you.
Scott Spalding, everybody. Yeah, he put out a tweet earlier as I was preparing the show notes, and just kind of wanted to get it from his mouth because we won't be talking again until next week. So I just wanted to get a good update from him about how Defend the Guard was going. And the reason that this is I'm taking this, this is a big deal. We've actually adopted Defend the Guard kind of a kind of wording as a platform in the Libertarian Party of Maryland. We actually voted on it last spring in the convention. So like this is a very Libertarian Party of Maryland issue that is in our bylaws. It's actually on our website. So even though I'm not a National Guard's person, I'm not a combat veteran or just a veteran in general. I have tons of friends, families that are veterans, National Guard, active or not. So it does mean something to me, and the added fact that it's part of our Libertarian Party of Maryland bylaws or platform, it's a big deal. And Scott has put a lot of work in this for the past couple of years. He's put it first and foremost, and so we're going to try to reciprocate a little bit, and Baltimore County and Anne Arundel County chairs, we are going to try to help him get Baltimore City back up and going, because this has been taking up so much of his time, and we support him, and we want to be able to support him not just on this endeavor, but the endeavor of being the Baltimore City chair of the Baltimore City Libertarians. So, all right, let's get back to my rant for just a couple more minutes. Before Scott hopped in, we were talking about minors on the age of 14, including a minor who is developmentally disabled. Or no, sorry. We were talking about the 14-year-old has the same capacity as an adult to consent to vaccination. And we were talking, I think about coercion, that, these students, these children, because they're children, could be coerced by a teacher who is still wearing their mask, still getting their boosters, and, found out student doesn't have the vaccine because their parents don't want them to get it, and then telling them like, oh hey, you can just go to the school nurse and get the vaccine. Next thing you know, your kid has a vaccine that you don't want them to have, or you don't know it. And something horrible could happen, and you have no idea why this happens. And because of the law, of the way that it's written, saying that this is a sealed document that the parents don't even have access to. This would have to go to some sort of ethics committee to okay, the hospital can see that they got this vaccination at school without the parents' knowledge or consent. The parents, they still can't tell the parents that this is what happened, but at least the hospital can know. So you're getting into a big potential for things to go wrong. And as a parent, I can't imagine something happening to my child and they can't tell me what's wrong because it's from a vaccination that I didn't want them to get, and they can't tell me that it's because of vaccination. They can just tell me what's wrong, not how it happened, but what's wrong. And as far as this point goes, depending on what it is, there's no fix to some of these things. Like neurological disorders, there's people that uncontrollably shake. They can't even control their bodies anymore, and there's no fix to it. It could be argued that like stem cells or something could fix this, but that's not in everybody's insurance policy or plan, or it's not affordable to them. So, I mean, this bill is honestly, it makes me fucking sick to my stomach. The fact that our legislature is even considering this is just a more proof that our government wants to steal our children from us. that they think that the parent doesn't have the ability to raise their child, that the government needs to be more involved in the raising of the child. You know, there's already so much stigma at this point in time with the public school system, and then you're going to add this on top of it. I have a hard time saying it because as it currently stands, it's very difficult for a lot of people to pull their kids out of public school, whether they go to a private school or charter school, which in my personal opinion aren't a whole hell of a lot better. And then, homeschooling to me is the next best option, but you would almost either have to, you pay for a tutor to come teach your children at your home, or one of the parents has to quit their job. And the way everything is right now, if it's not common for a family to be able to live on a single income anymore. It hasn't been that way for a very, very long time. So I think I'm done ranting about this thing, just because if you read this thing, and I urge you to read it over yourself. If you read this thing, it's very, very short, and there's not a whole lot of legalese. I read it right to you. And this doesn't just make your fucking blood boil, then I don't know what to tell you, because it's so gross, and it's negligent, honestly. The fact that the government is trying, this is just another way the government is trying to take your kids away from you so that they can raise them to be the drones that they want them to be. They can be, vote along party lines. They don't have a thought for themselves. They're just NPCs just walking through life getting pissed off about the next thing. And meanwhile, people like me are pissed off that they're trying to pass bills that are stealing our children from us. So I'm going to be looking into this more, because this is just, the gun bill, SB1, and the other gun bills, they're bad. But this one makes me sick to my stomach. And, like what Scott was saying, we need to get involved in these things. If you feel passionate about something, you need to get involved. And I don't think I can sit idly by with this bill, because it does not sit right with me. I'm still trying to do my thing on the county level, but this is just absolutely and utterly insane that they're even considering this bill. I wanted to tell you the committee that it's in. It's the Finance Committee, right? I told you that. So let's look at the members of the Finance Committee really quick before I get on out of here. So the bill is sponsored by Senator Kagan in, go figure, Montgomery County. Just that state, or that county, just loves fucking with our freedoms. It really does. So the Finance Committee is chaired by Senator Melanie Griffith of Prince George's County, almost as bad as Montgomery County. The vice chair is Catherine Clausmeyer of Baltimore County. And then let's look at its membership. You have Pamela Beadle of District 32 in Anne Arundel County, Democrat. Arthur Ellis, District 28, Charles County, Democrat. Dawn Guile, Anne Arundel County, District 33, Democrat. Antonio Hayes, Baltimore City, District 40, Democrat. Benjamin Kramer, Montgomery County, District 19, Democrat. Anne Arundel County and Howard County, District 12, Clarence Lamb, Democrat. And then you have Stephen Hershey, who is the Senate. He's the minority leader now, right? Or the whip. I can't quite remember it right now. I think he might be the whip. So you have Stephen Hershey of Kent, Queen Anne, Cecil, and Caroline counties, District 36, Republican. Johnny Moats of Caroline, Dorchester, Talbot, and Wacomico counties, District 37, Republican. And Justin Reddy, District 5, Frederick and Carroll counties, Republican. So in this committee, the Republicans are outnumbered. 3 Republicans, 6, 7, 8. So it's 3 Republicans to 8 Democrats. So, seeing as the Democrats are pushing this bill, and it's probably going to pass the Senate, unless enough people talk about it. Just how Scott was saying, doesn't matter if you're a health expert. You can be against something and not be a complete expert on it. If something doesn't sit right with you and you can justify why it doesn't sit right with you, then testify against it. Luckily, the hearing is the 22nd of next week, which is a Wednesday, so you would have until Monday, I think Monday at 3 p.m. to sign up to testify, whether written, you can say favorable or not favorable of it. You can sign up to testify in person. You can write a written testimony, and you can do Zoom as well. So if you can't, say you're out in Western Maryland, you can't make it down to Annapolis that day, then you can do it over Zoom. So SB 0378. Please look it up. Please read through it for yourself. And if you agree with it, fine. Agree with it. But if you don't, like I think most common sense people wouldn't, then let's speak out against it. I might put the chicken stuff on hold for a little while until this hopefully gets killed in committee. But knowing the Democrats in this state, it's a good chance they could go completely through. And next thing you know, starting, in June, minors could be getting vaccinations with no knowledge by their parent or guardian. With that being said, that's all I have for tonight, on this Valentine's night. It's supposed to be a happy day, and I'm pissed off. I hope everybody else is pissed off about just this bill. This bill is enough to piss you off and want to get involved. You don't fuck with kids, and that's what they're doing. So let's talk next week. I might do a little Twitter live while I'm at the rally on Sunday. Somehow I went from just tabling the Libertarian Party of Maryland table to volunteering for all this stuff at the rally. That's what happens a lot with me. But I do plan on getting out and just hanging out and mingling and talking to people. So I'll probably do like a Twitter live or YouTube or I'll figure it out, because I won't have my equipment with me. I'll just probably have my phone, maybe bring like my microphone or something. So look out for that. I'll definitely at least be doing something fun. So with that, I have nothing else. Thank you all for watching tonight and listening wherever you listen, and I will I'll talk to you Sunday. Have a good night, everybody.